welcome to another episode of the Bearing Millennial podcast, where I help millennial moms feel fulfilled in all seasons of motherhood by sharing traditional values, biblical femininity tips, income-producing tips for stay-at-home moms, and so much more. We've had some great guests lined up the last few weeks. These interviews have been so fun, and I've got another fantastic guest for you tonight. But before we jump into this episode, I do want to make you aware that this episode was recorded a few weeks ago. So you're going to hear some things referenced to, like my husband having to be in the ER for some health concerns. He's totally okay. This was a few weeks ago that this was recorded. Everything's fine now. And there's nothing to be concerned about. And truly, we are just so thankful that we went to the ER and found out that he's okay. So just want to make you aware of that so you're not like, wait, Jill, what just happened? This was recorded a few weeks ago. And also, before we dive in, if you love what you hear from this episode, if you connected with it, if you resonated with it, if you think someone else would benefit from this episode, could you please rate, comment, and share the podcast to help the podcast get discovered? I would be so thankful. So without further ado, let's jump into today's interview. Hello, and welcome to the Bearing Millennial podcast. I'm Jill, and I'm so excited for today's guest. I have with me a friend of mine who actually, it's so funny because we met through Clubhouse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Remember when Clubhouse was like such a big thing for, I don't know, I feel like it was a big thing for like a year. I don't even know what's happened to it since. But Ashley and I met through Clubhouse 2-3 years ago or so, and have been friends since. And so I'm excited to have Ashley Herrera with me tonight. We're going to be talking about time management as a mom, accomplishing goals, and being a homemaker with multiple kids, because you are pregnant with baby number 7, right?
Yep.
So welcome,
Crazy.
Ashley. Tell us about yourself, who you are, and what you do. Welcome, Ashley.
Well, I am a mama of 7, as you just introduced me. That's what I'm known as. Like, people see me like, oh, you have a bunch of kids. I'm like, yep, that's me. So that's who I am. I am, aside from that, just following God in this journey of homemaking, really allowing Him to take control. And that's not always easy. So it's definitely a journey of just trying to balance my time with him, with family, and taking care of the house. And aside from all of that, I also like to dabble in a whole bunch of things. I'm like moms always wear many hats, but yeah, I wear them all pretty much. So if you ask if I do it, I probably have done it or want to do it or am doing it currently.
What do you mean? Like, give us some examples.
Well, I'm definitely right-brained, so I love to crochet, bake, um, kind of knit. I'm not the best. I love to color and paint and all of the craftiness. I've worked everywhere. It's really embarrassing to tell you like how many places I've worked, but at the same time, it's pretty cool because then I have that experience under my belt. I've hiked, I've swam, I've been in the military. I've I've done a lot.
I feel like we are so similar because this is actually the first year in the 7 years my husband and I have been together that I only have one tax form to give him. One. Every other year, it's like 6 different tax forms, and he's so excited for this year.
Yes, definitely been
So,
there.
oh my goodness. What was like one of your favorite jobs?
Disneyland.
Really? Like in
Yeah.
Washington?
No, Anaheim, California.
Okay, so you worked at Disneyland. What'd you do there?
I worked concessions, which was hard because now we just went to Disney World in January of this year, and everything is automated, like motorized carts and stuff. So when I did that thing, I look at them like, you don't even know what that is. I had to push the cola carts up and down the back hills of Disneyland by myself. No motor. It was just my 2 legs and a lot of gas just pushing this thing. So yeah, they were spoiled now around Disneyland and Disney World, but that's one of my favorite jobs.
My mother-in-law is actually leaving tomorrow morning to fly down to Disney World for the week for her and her husband's 40th anniversary.
I love
Um,
that.
so, but okay, so do you want to know what my favorite job was that I worked? You would never guess it in a million years.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I could guess. Go ahead.
No one ever can guess it. It was geese police.
What is that?
What I mean. It's so random. Okay, so this was whenever I lived in Pittsburgh. I worked for this is before I got into the victim advocacy work. I worked for geese police, and basically we were hired by golf courses and like the Three Rivers and so forth. And we had Australian shepherds that were trained, and we would
Oh
go scare
wow.
away the geese. Like I would kayak down the river with the dog in the kayak, or I'd go in the ponds at golf courses and stuff with the dog in the kayak. And the dog had command words that I would say to chase after the geese to scare them
Oh
away.
wow.
And the more you scared away the geese, the less likely they were to come back to that spot. So I literally drove around all day with a dog and got to kayak and stuff and just scare away birds.
I would like that too. That
It was
sounds
so much
amazing.
fun. So much fun. My husband always says that whenever I retire him, that's what he's gonna do.
Heck yeah. Be in a kayak all day? I would do
Right.
that any day.
So much fun. Okay, so as a busy mom with lots of kids, how on earth do you make time for everything? Like you said, like you've done so much. Like,
Yeah.
how do you make time for all this? What are some of your time management tips?
It's funny because every time I'm asked this, it's hard to answer. And the easiest thing to say is I'm like a cyborg or a robot. I always say I'm like automated. It just happens. Um, but I have had to think about it and break it down. And I just have to kind of go to the left brain and it just happens automatically. I'm just very organized, like, okay, we're up. We have to do these things, like get ready for school by a certain time, and then we're putting our shoes on. So I guess I automatically time block is what it is
Okay.
without really thinking about it.
Okay. For
I know
those who
for
don't know
some,
what time blocking is, can you explain that?
it's where you kind of segment your day out into blocks of time. So, for example, the easiest thing to just share is morning routine because moms are always trying to balance that out to get everybody out the door.
Yes.
My crew of kids are all in different schools. So I have high schooler, middle school, elementary, and preschool. The two oldest are out the door on their own. I just have to make sure that they are on time, but they're usually really good. So I don't have to worry about them too much. It's the elementary and the preschoolers that are the ones to juggle. So they get up around 6:30 or so. So definitely by 7:45, they need to be up and moving, getting ready to go. And at that time, if they're not, I just remind them like, okay, it's time to start getting ready and doing the checklist, have breakfast, get your shoes and all that. Then by about so from 7:45 to 8:45, that's the hour that they have to get everything ready for school. And I tell them once you're done, you have your lunch packed, your hair brushed, all of the essential things done, then you have free time. So it kind of gives them an incentive to get things done more on time
Mm.
without me having to be right on them and yelling at them or raising my voice or anything like that. Um, Sometimes we have bad days where it's always my 8-year old who's very lazy. And I'm like, come on, we have to go. We have to go. But she's getting better. And I think that just comes with maturity too. So by 8:45 to 8:55, that's when we're getting into the car and leaving to get everybody to school.
Okay.
So you kind of just have these blocks of time where you check things off and get things done and move on.
every morning from like basically 7 to 9 is dedicated as this is time to get the
School.
kids ready for school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. So since becoming a mom, I've especially learned how hard and unpredictable life can be. As you said, like some mornings are really bad. I feel like every other week, like one week it's so good, and then the next week I've got an urgent care trip and an ER trip and then everything else happening. Like what just happened? So
Yeah.
and having another little one on the way, how do you create practical goals for your life and then for your business too?
This is hard too for me specifically because like I said, I love to do it all. Obviously, I've had all the jobs, so I want to do everything and my ice cream and have the cake with it. Um, I really have to focus hard on what is most important to me at that time and in that season, what is possible within that season. Um, this year, toward the end of 2022, God really called me to slow down and be really intentional. And that's what called me to homemaking. So I'm really trying to align my goals currently with what God is calling me to do. And that's a learning process for me right now. So it's kind of hard for me to answer this because old Ashley would be like, do everything and just wing it. And it just happens. It like falls into place and it would work. Um, but it would be very scattered. So I would get things done on my own timeline and I wouldn't have a pressure on myself to get things done. So I was very more on the free spirited side of
Right.
goal accomplishing,
Right.
which was great and it worked for me. But it wasn't so much aligned with what God was calling me to do. It was more of me controlling what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So now I am really being intentional with how I'm spending my time this year and asking myself, is this goal still going to allow me to put time towards God and put my family and my home first and then make time for that goal? So I do allow myself some work time. And again, with time blocking, which I just naturally do, I'll set aside time like an hour during lunch, usually when everybody's eating, and I'll just get stuff done, whatever that is. And if I can't get everything done, I allow myself grace and move it to the next time that I can get to that goal or task and just be really easy with myself.
I
So I
feel
think
like
that's
so many moms need reminded of that. Like we have all this pressure to get it all done and can beat
yeah,
ourselves up so much at the end of the day if we didn't get all those tasks done. And truly, moms have to just embrace grace so much more in their lives. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that you and your family are healthy and okay and happy and alive. like, like
yes,
it, everything else will work in God's time.
yeah. And I would take that pressure and get the task done, like old me from a couple years ago, but I wouldn't be really focused on my kids, like fully dedicating time to them, or I would turn into a frustrated mom because they're coming into my time that I'm working, and I would then turn into somebody that I didn't really want to be, and that was just an annoyed mom or frustrated mom. Don't get me wrong, I still do get frustrated and annoyed, but it's different. I'm allowing more space for that slowness to come in, and I don't get upset with them impacting my goal time or my work session, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. It's something that I've been working to embrace more in my lifestyle with, being a homemaker and truly building a brand and stuff around homemaking is the idea that my children should be involved in that. I mean, before the Industrial Revolution, and I've made posts about this and talked about this before in my socials, but before the Industrial Revolution, family businesses were what they are. They were family businesses. The children were fully involved in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I view my business in particular, but especially most moms working, running their own businesses or doing some form of that from home. It's a family business. Like if they're owning their own business, it's considered a family business. And what I've learned for myself, at least in my opinion, is when I involve my children, it's so much more fun. My kids, my daughter just absolutely feels like, she is the biggest helper in the world and she has a blast with it. And it makes it more memorable and it honestly makes it even more meaningful. Like the income obviously is helping our family pay off debt and stuff, but
Yeah.
having that as a bonding moment, like our finger paint makeup, those videos I make with my daughter, it's so much more meaningful because I get to make those memories with her of just making the absolute mess of my face and seeing it all come together as my 3-year-old paints my face with makeup. So no, I love that. And you and I have had so many conversations about homemaking. And I love that you are beginning to share homemaking tips too. So what are some of like your top tips then for slowing down, especially with a big family and prioritizing the home?
My gosh, this is it's I guess really simple. Just God first.
Mm-hmm.
For me, because I naturally take after my grandmother, and she's known in our family as the Energizer Bunny. She will just go, 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 and go from like activity to activity to activity. And that's
I guess
me.
we've
I'll just
I was gonna say, I guess
go.
we see where you get that from.
Yeah. So it really takes me a lot of focusing on God to slow down. And it's still not easy. I still feel the pull to like, all of this has to get done today. Like it's just an inkling or a natural craving, if you want to call that, to do things. Um, but I love that because then when I notice that pull, I can just stop and say, okay, I need to refocus and just be present with God, which I'm trying to now implement with my family devotional time. But that is a crazy thing to try and organize with all of us because everybody has different schedules. So I'm still working on that end. But being able to say no to things and say, you know what, everybody's tired or everybody's kind of chaotic right now. So let's just do nothing today and be present with each other is really helping. There's more connection, there's more bickering because they're all together on some days, and it's fun to try to see how this is going to be molded by God in this new journey that we're going through. But I'm so happy that we're on this path now.
I love that. So what does it mean to you then to slow down? Like what does your ideal day or schedule look like in your mind where everything is slowed down?
Honestly, it's not feeling um, that pressure to just be everywhere, do everything. And it's a piece that just feels really good to be home and praying. It's, I keep telling my kids, I'm like, you know, I've been a Christian since I was 18. And it's taken me this long. I'm 36, I'll be 37 this year, to really give God the reins. And it honestly feels great because I don't have to stress so much.
Yeah.
It's just a natural slowdown when that happens. And I don't know why it's taken that long. He does, but it's for a reason. And I now can just tell them like you can't their faith is so young. I'm like, you can't give up on your faith because eventually he'll come around and show you what he's doing. And I'm so happy he showed me how to slow down right now because it just
Mhm.
feels like a good natural pause with a peace that you can't really explain.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking about that with my husband last night, actually. We had a lot of fear. Like he was at the ER yesterday. He's okay, but we were having some heart concerns and stuff. And I had a ton of anxiety this week because his heart it's been something that we've been worried about for a while now. And this week was
Yeah.
just getting worse. And so I was talking with someone who I consider a dad. Um, he's my adopted dad, is what I call him. And he was like,
Oh,
stop trying to control everything. And I was like, you know what?
yeah.
You're totally right. That's exactly what I'm doing. And whenever I was talking to my husband about it last night, that's where all of my anxiety was come was being a slave to the past, of bad things that have happened in the past, making me so fearful of the future. So I wanted to control it. I wanted all the
Hmm.
control possible, but I can't. I have zero control over that. The best I can do is be prepared. I can do what I
Yeah.
need to do every day. I can pray. I can read my Bible. I can, you know, do what it is that best fits my family and stuff and just be prepared and instead of trying to control. Um, just continuously practicing what it is that God wants me to practice. And you're right, there is just such a peace that comes with that. You don't have the societal pressures of wanting to put your kids in every single activity and you're chauffeuring
Hmm.
to all these different places and you're under the societal pressure of like doing every single thing. Um, and it's so interesting seeing so many posts from moms who are craving this, who want
Yeah.
the slow mornings, who don't want the jam-packed evenings after school, and so forth. So I love that God is doing this for you, and you're getting to experience that, and you're sharing that with
Yeah.
women. In fact, I loved your recent post about your word for 2023. You said is rooted.
Hmm.
Will you talk more about that?
Again, it goes back to him pulling at my heart last, I think it was at the end of summer. I was trying to, well, I had started my own little coaching business, helping moms try to find this balance. And it was going well. But then I kept feeling him pull at me and say, stop, slow down, just focus on being a mom. And that was so hard because I don't like stopping things because I'm like, I want to succeed. I want it to be what I envision it to be. And for whatever reason, I was able to be obedient and listen. And I stopped. I stopped my coaching. I stopped everything. I even got off my Instagram socials for a bit of time.
Yeah.
And that's not normal for me either. Um, and just started getting into my Bible and really desiring that time with him. And as I was coming to, I think it was like 1 month after quitting everything or stopping everything, I found out I was pregnant with baby number
Wow.
7. I was like, oh, this is why he wanted me to stop.
Wow. Oh
This
my
is why
gosh.
you want me to focus on motherhood. And I just thought that was hilarious because his timing is always funny. Um, and I just continued. I continued praying and then felt the urge to share my journey with digging into a relationship with him. And I forget how the word came. Oh, it was actually through the Dayspring quiz, oddly enough. But then rooted, I'm like, that's exactly what I need to be because it goes back to that verse, which I'm horrible at quoting scripture. One of my goals to get better at this year is memorizing verses, but the house by the water and how it's anchored. do I want my house to be on the sand and it just to be slowly sifted away with the erosion that comes through our lives? Or do I want my house on the rock and just being firm and, not that the house is rooted, but it's totally anchored in God. And that's what I want to be. And I always would look at that verse and say, I am the house on the sand, because I would just so easily get distracted. And it's so much easier for moms, I think, to get distracted because of everything that we do. And we get into that autopilot mode. So rooted is definitely, it felt right when it popped up on that quiz. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. I want to be rooted in Christ and firmly rooted, so that even if something comes, just like a tree, if it's firmly rooted in the ground, no matter what storm comes, it's going to be standing. And that's what it needs to be.
Oh my gosh, that was so powerful. And I just loved hearing you explain that further. And now I want to go read more about the house in the sand and the house on the rock. That just the visual in itself. But I did not know your story with God was telling you to slow down and then you found out you're pregnant. My goodness, how amazing that is. God just works in such beautiful ways. Okay, Ashley, do you have any special projects or announcements or offers that you have for our listeners today?
Well, something I'm really excited about, and hopefully it'll happen. I'm doing my birthday with this baby, so that would be cool. But
that's awesome.
I thought that was hilarious too. I'm like, okay, I found out I was pregnant a month after you asked me to stop and focus on motherhood. And then I find out the due date's my birthday. I'm like, you're funny, God. You're hilarious.
That is so funny.
But I'm really excited because I just joined with Saint under you.
Yeah.
So that's like, I've been waiting, and you know this too. I'm like, I like this. I don't know if I'm going to join. I like it. I don't know if I'm going to join. And I'm finally like, okay, I think we're just going to go all in and and pray over it and see what happens. So I'm excited. And just praying over what God is going to do with this year. I'm really just excited. So you'll have to follow me and find out what he does this year.
So where can people follow you? Where can they find you?
On my Instagram, I'm at the Dedicated Homemaker, and I'll be talking about my rosacea journey that I'm trying to heal because it's awful, thanks to gluten for sure. Sharing my faith and what God's doing in my life. Whatever he wants me to share, I put out there. And it's pretty cool to see the things that he puts on my heart. So I'm also going to be doing an email list, so you can hop on that, and I'll be starting some dedicated homemaker emails there as well.
Love it. Okay, thank you so much, Ashley, for being on the podcast today and for all of the value that you provided for our moms listening who need to just be reminded to slow down and just put God first in your life. And really think for yourself, are you the house in the sand or are you the house on the rock? And how can you remain rooted in your life? And how can you just give yourself more grace in motherhood and while raising your kids? So thank you, Ashley, for being on. And
Thanks.
I hope everyone has a wonderful day. We'll see you next week on next week's episode.
You've just listened to another episode of the Myrrh Bearing Millennial podcast. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And as always, everything you need to know and all of Ashley's info is linked in the show notes below. So be sure to go give her a follow, connect with her, say hi, and tell her Jill sent you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you loved what you listened to, if you connected with it, please rate, comment, and share the episode to help the podcast get discovered. Thank you so much again, and we will see you next week on the Myrrh Bearing Millennial podcast.